Hi, this is Mary from Imaginary's Creations, and today I'm going to show you how to make your own silicone molds at home using much cheaper products than what you can buy in the store that are ready to go. The first thing we're going to use is silicone. This is the same silicone in tubes that you use in home care for around tubs and sinks and what have you. It has to be silicone, not acrylic. I'm using just a little spatula that I use for everyday crafting. I'm using a doll that I got at Goodwill, and I've kind of torn her apart, but I'm going to use her face as the mold. And cornstarch is our other ingredient. It's basically silicone and cornstarch. And this is much cheaper than the pre-made mold compounds you can get at the craft stores, which run up to $20, $30, $40, $50. One tube of silicone costs $2 to $3, and one can of cornstarch or container of cornstarch costs $2 to $3. So for $6 you can get a whole bunch of molds made, and it's a lot more economical than using the pre-made compounds. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and squeeze an amount, and there's no mathematic equation to this. I don't have a recipe. I'm just squeezing out a pile of silicone, and then what we're going to do is I pour the cornstarch on top like this. I take my spatula and I start working it in, just folding it and kneading it, just like if it was pastry per se. And I keep working at it, and you need to work it to a point where you can hold it or grab it in your hand without it completely sticking all over. And so there's quite a bit of work involved in making this, but this makes one fairly good sized mold using a doll, and you could probably get 2 molds out of this amount right here. But you just keep working it back and forth and folding it in and under and getting that cornstarch incorporated in there. And as you can see, it's starting to pick up a lot of the cornstarch. And we just keep folding it through. Now I'm wearing nitrile gloves because I don't want it all over my hands. It's not going to be harmful to get it on your hands, but I just don't want to clean it off afterwards. So you get it to a point where you can start working with it in your hand, but see, there is some sticking to the glove. So I'm just going to keep working this in. And get it to a point where it's not sticking so much anymore. And there's not much more sticking. And then you want to get up the little crumbs of things that or the silicone that you have here, and work in those little bits that are stuck around the sides here. So you don't want to leave them out. You can use them. Just keep working it in, squeezing it, kneading it till it's at a nice consistency. It's still a little tacky, so I just dump it in some more cornstarch and keep working it. It won't dry super quick. This stuff has to dry for about 24 hours, so you've got plenty of time to work with it. Now it's just barely tacky, and that's about a good spot to stop right now. So we'll get this rounded into a ball or an oval. Then I take my doll and I go ahead and I push her face in there. Oh, it is sticking a little bit. That's okay. I'll just get some cornstarch on my hand. And I just work with it and mold it around her face. Get it all encompassed in there and press down so that I'm getting all the necessary indentations of her face that I need. And you don't want it too thin around the face because it won't be a very sturdy mold then. So you just work it, kind of round it, and basically when you know you've got it pretty much set, I kind of just take a little bit and rub it flat so it gives it a little bit of a flat surface. Now I'm going to let this dry, and it will take anywhere from 6 hours, maybe a little bit less. We're here in Arizona, so it dries out a lot faster, but I would say give it a good 6 hours before you attempt to pull it off. Being silicone, it will come off. Now, it will have some little pieces stuck on the doll, but it's not going to harm the doll, and you can redo another one. You can reuse this over and over again, this doll. So just work with it a little bit and then set it down somewhere and let it dry. And you let it, once it's dry, then you can go ahead and peel off the mask, and I will show you that when we come back to it. Okay, we're back, and I have to say that I had to redo this video because I got interrupted right in the middle of it by the mail girl. I had some wonderful stuff from China. Very excited. However, I had already previously pulled off this mask. After about an hour and a half outside here in Arizona, it was cooked. And so during the winter, that's not going to be the same story. And wherever you live, if it's back east, it's not going to be the same story. I would recommend you keep it on at least 4 to 6 hours before you attempt to take it off, wherever you live. But in doing so, it's already loosened, but I started with running my finger around the edge and getting some air in there and just pulling as much as I could, and then slowly peeled it off. Now the doll's not harmed at all. She's got a little bit of cornstarch on her maybe, and some little bits of silicone, but nothing that's going to harm her beyond what she's already harmed by, because I've done a bad job with her. Anywho, here's my mold, and you aren't going to be able to see it real well from this point, but I'm going to go ahead and take some paper clay, and I'm going to roll it into a ball, or a ball shape, but I'm going to put a point on it, like so, because I have found through making lots and lots of faces, I don't always get the noses completed. So I've been starting to do this where I push the tip that I've made into the nose, and then I proceed to push down with my clay. Now I'm going to push down a little bit more and make sure that I get that really down in there. And you can take off the excess clay around the edges, just like so. Now, technically you don't want to leave it like that unless you like really raw edges. But if you want to be able to use it somewhat as soon as you've dried it and pulled it out, then I would consider pulling down the edges a little bit, like so, and you kind of round them. And this is really not a necessary step. It's pretty much just for show and for ease of use once you've gotten it out of here. And you can continue to take clay out so that your face is as thin as you'd like it, so that it dries faster. And you can dip your fingers in some water and smooth it down a little bit. But I try to get as much done as I can before the piece is taken out, so that I don't have to do all that labor-intensive work at the end. So now I'm going to try and take it out while it's still wet. Now it will distort a little bit on the edges here, but that's nothing that can't be fixed later on. I probably will end up trimming some off anyways. So what I'll do is I get my finger down in here and I start pulling it away. And it looks like I'm probably ruining it, but hopefully I'm not. We get some air in there, and then it comes out. Now, for all intents and purposes, she's pretty decent. And I don't mind these flanges off to the side because I can cut them off later. I can also cut them off now, clean her up a little bit. And please pardon my wobbly hands. I have a bunch of hand issues. So kind of rounded a little bit, what have you. Her nose got a little tweaked, but I can work on that afterwards as well. For all intents and purposes, she looks pretty darn good. So if I set her down, and I cut off a little bit more here maybe. She's not looking too bad at all. And she will be good to use as soon as she dries, and then I can sand her down, and then I can finish her any way I choose to. You see she's still concave here on the back, so if I make an art doll with her, I can do it on a rounded base or on a piece of styrofoam, and I can glue it on there, and then it works. If I want it flattened, I can just, of course, add more clay. But there you have a nice, quick, homemade mold, and fairly inexpensive. At least a lot more inexpensive than the pre-molded or pre-molding product or resin product that you buy in the stores. So I hope this helped you a little bit. And if you have any questions or need some help with anything, please don't hesitate to contact me at maryw@cox.net. That's MERIW@cox.net, and I'll be happy to answer any questions I can. Thanks. Bye.